Hello, friends and neighbors from around the world. Sid High here again with a sermon on things that should be feared versus manufactured fear. Fear can be used to unite a group to fight a common foe. Sometimes the use of fear is to instill the will to fight and die for a cause, say to defend one's family and community. Sometimes it is the fear of what will happen if action is not taken, say to prevent a disaster. And as beautiful as Mother Nature is, there's a lot to fear in nature. The climate, for one, the more unstable it is, the more there is to fear. Here are some things that are already occurring that you should fear. Rising temperatures. Summers are hotter with more frequent and intense heat waves. Melting ice and rising seas. Yes, there are so many disasters that this will cause, but just focus on one for a second. How losing glaciers and snowpacks will affect life on this planet. There are billions of people that rely on the summer runoff for the water supply. Without it, they will have to migrate. Not to mention the environmental impacts. Sea level rise will also cause mass migration. Where will these people go? We'll get more into that later and also in other videos. Wildfires and drought. Wildfire seasons are longer and more intense. Droughts are more frequent and severe, and all of this was predicted, and it is happening. It was predicted through scientific methods. I need to add that. So, continuing, extreme weather events. Hurricanes and tropical storms are becoming stronger and wetter due to warmer oceans. Flooding from heavy rainfall is increasing in many regions. Yeah, just ask North Carolina and East Tennessee and Georgia. Well, anyway, all over. Shifts in the ecosystem. Plants and animals are shifting their geographic ranges and blooming earlier. Coral reefs are suffering from bleaching due to warmer waters and ocean acidification. And the human health impact. Think about that for a second. Heat-related illnesses and deaths have increased, especially during extreme heat events. Allergy seasons are longer and more intense due to increased pollen production. Vector-borne diseases, those ticks and things that suck your blood, like Lyme disease and dengue, are spreading to new regions. All right, agriculture and food security. Crop yields are declining in some areas due to drought and heat stress. Nutritional quality of fruits and vegetables are decreasing due to elevated CO2 levels. These are things that are already happening all over the world and are a few examples of legitimate reasons to be fearful of the future because there are really scary things happening right now, so fear is a reasonable emotion. Fear can make you give up, or fear can be used to motivate action in individuals and groups. We need to elect leaders who are not afraid to face and embrace this fear to address these issues, but also start planning on how to deal with the disasters that are occurring right now and the ones we can see coming in the future. Action gives hope. But there are those who profit off of polluting the environment, so they will use their control of the media to misinform the public about what is really happening. They will attack any and everyone who disagrees with them. Always remember, fear, when used by a propagandist, is one of their most powerful and effective tools. But propaganda can be used to quell the fear of something, such as climate change, that should actually be feared. I will cover some of the propaganda techniques used to do this in the future videos, but now I unfortunately have to cover manufactured fear. For an example of manufactured fear, unfortunately, I have to use illegal immigration. Yes, it's true that illegal immigration has been a problem for not just decades, but centuries, really forever. But what if you could exploit this problem and make it seem bigger than it really is? And with propaganda, you can not only do that, but change people's reality on this so firmly that they feel the only way to fix the problem is to eradicate the problem altogether. That evil has been perpetrated on the world before to unimaginable horrors. So we must do everything in our power to prevent it from ever happening again. Let's think about this for a bit. What would be some ways to address the illegal immigration issue? Well, how about punish the companies and people that hire illegal immigrants? This would take away the carrot that's drawing people in, so to speak. This alone would drastically reduce illegal immigration, and legislation has been proposed before to do just that. I was living in Laverne, Tennessee in the early 1990s and remember the news reporting that Tyson's Food had gotten popped for employing illegal immigrants. But the fine was peanuts to Tyson's. I'm sure they saved more money by employing illegal immigrants than the fine cost them. So why not keep cheating? I also remember, and I believe he was a Republican from California, I can't remember his name, but he proposed a law to increase the punishment companies would face that hire illegal immigrants. I thought this was a great idea, but the strange part of this story is, guess who killed the bill? Republicans. I knew right then that the Republicans didn't want to fix the problem. And why wouldn't they want to fix the problem when they rail against it so? Well, the main two reasons are, number one, that companies are saving huge amounts of money by hiring illegal immigrants, and they donate to politicians that rail about illegal immigration but won't pass anything to fix the problem, but will pass things that really won't fix the problem but get lots of media coverage. And number two, they want to use propaganda techniques to exaggerate the problem to the point that people fear it so they can use it in their political agenda. So how can a politician rail against illegal immigration and yet never pass meaningful legislation to try and prevent it and still get elected? Through the magical power of, say it with me now, propaganda. Deceive, exaggerate, lie. Let's think about this. The vast majority of the people at the border were seeking asylum. Yes, trying to come into the country legally. There's a limit on that, but they have just overwhelmed the system. The immigration department has been understaffed and underfunded for years. Also remember that before the border became such a crisis, the majority of immigrants that are here illegally is because they let their green card expire or their visa expire and things like that. There's plenty of information by other people about the details of illegal immigration, and it was not nearly as big of a problem as it has been made out to be. Yes, it's a problem, but they have just really... But remember, a propagandist's job is to create the reality, control the narrative. So how do you get people to believe this new narrative? Start with getting the media to refer to anyone who looks like an immigrant as an illegal. Refer to them as criminals and rapists, which is ironic because it's promoted the most by a guy who was a convicted felon and sexual assaulter, otherwise known as a rapist by most normal people. Think about that. A convicted felon and sex assaulter is able to get people to fear anyone who looks like an immigrant because they could be a criminal or rapist. Wake up. I mean, the call is coming from inside the house. Okay? I have found it very strange also that there was suddenly caravans of immigrants that started happening about 2015. I remember reading that climate change had ruined many crops in Central America and that it was a breakdown of governments and social order that caused people to migrate. And those are certainly reasons for migration, but why did so many people deciding to migrate happen so fast? Well, if I were a propagandist that was wanting to get as much media attention as possible and to make this problem into a crisis that people will fear, I'd send some operatives down to Central America to start spreading the idea that they could migrate to the U.S. and get jobs. The carrot again. And anyway, I covered that earlier. Propagandists use tactics like this all the time because they are cheap and effective. Also, if it gets reported on, Most people won't care because it doesn't seem like a big deal, because the majority of humans do not understand the power of such a small propaganda technique. And a propagandist has no regard for human suffering as long as what they are doing gets results. As Bill Maher would say, I don't know it for a fact, but the point of this part of the video is not to debate immigration policy or to show how fear can be, but to show how fear can be manufactured. In this case, it takes a problem and makes it a crisis. To take a problem and make it a crisis. So, is it the immigrant that is looking to make a better life that should be feared? Or is it the propagandist that will use any method to get people to reject the commonalities and stoke fear by demonizing anyone that looks like an immigrant? Seems like that should be a rhetorical question, doesn't it? Just looking at the first commonality, love and compassion, means that hating immigrants is evil. And the propagandists that stoke fear so as to drive people to hate immigrants is beyond evil and is rejected by every religion and every person with an ethical, moral bone in their body. Yet here we are. This sermon is going a little long, so instead of going through how this violates other commonalities, I'm asking you to do that and put it in the comment section. I bet there will be some interesting comments. All right, fumbled through a little of that, but yeah, trying to get these videos together and get everything in here is just a real challenge, but and keep them short, that is, reasonably short. So that's it for this sermon, to see how there are truly things that we should be fearing and working to resolve, but yet we have all of these entities and special interests that are wanting to keep creating other problems to distract us from the real problems. Not that these don't have problems associated with them. That's part of propaganda. Take a small grain of truth and then bend it any way you can to keep people believing it because there's some truth in it, but yet corrupt it into a whole different problem. Anyways, that's what we're facing. That's what this video was really trying to stress, is how that can be corrupting religions even. I mean, so, all right, this video is going a little long and I'm getting a little worked up about it because it's very sensitive to me. Thank you again for watching. Like, subscribe. If you could share it, that would be great. I'm not asking for donations. I'm just hoping that this will get people to think about things that they might not have been thinking about before. So with that, I wish you all a good day, and I hope you tune in next time. And remember, go out there and be common. Thanks again.